Welcome to the Love Today channel. I am Minister Elaine. And today I want to take a few minutes to talk about promises. And I will be coming from the book of Samuel. And I'm going to read two of the verses here, and that will be 10 and 11. And she was embittered of the soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thy handmaiden, and remember me, and not forget thy handmaiden, but wilt thou give unto thy handmaiden a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. And I'm going to stop reading right there, but I want to encourage you to go back and read the entirety of the chapter. Let's talk about promises. You know, so many times we make promises. We make promises to ourselves. We make promises unto God. We make promises to others. But the question is, do we keep the promise that we made? So if we made a promise, are we actually keeping them? Are we keeping the promises that we made unto God? As you read this chapter, the Bible said that God answered Hannah's prayer. And Hannah had been in the temple, I would say many hours, and I'm just paraphrasing. She had been in the temple for many hours. And she had been praying so much with tears that it looked like she was drunk. The priest even thought she was drunk. Eli thought she was drunk. But she was not drunk. But she was just in a deep place of prayer. And she looked at the priest. He said, no, no, I'm not drunk. I'm praying, right? I'm just telling the story. She said, but I'm sorrowful in my spirit. And so many times we become sorrowful in our spirit because we don't know what to do. And sometimes we're in that place of give up. And we're like, what do I do from here? Where do I go? Lord, what? Do you hear me, Lord? And when we're going through, we begin to pray, but then we also make promises that we ought not to promise if we're not going to keep them. Hannah kept her promise unto God. God answered her prayer. She conceived and she had a son, and she called him Samuel. And she gave the child back to God. And oftentimes we make many promises, but we don't keep them. And I have heard testimonies of people that say, oh, you know what? I gave somebody some money and they ain't paid me back today. And I could tell you, like most people say, when it comes to family and friends, if you give them money and they say they're going to pay you back, don't look for it back. Just look at it as a gift that you gave them, because you probably won't get it back. But you know, our word is our bond. And when we break our words, we have breaking the trust. This is what the word tells us in Numbers 30:2. It said, if a man or a woman vow a vow unto the Lord, he or she shall not break his word. He or she shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his or her mouth. So in other words, whatever's coming out of your mouth, you pray or I prayed, we have to perform it. We have to do it. We have to do it. We can't take it back. As the word told us, we can't take it back and say it was an error. We can't tell the angel, oh, that was an error. I didn't mean to say it. I was just in that place. Because the Bible said God he don't take kindly to fools. So it's foolish to make a promise unto God, because first of all, it becomes a sin. It's a sin in us. And we can lose everything that so many of us have worked hard for, just because we would not keep the promise. If we vow, you got to keep it. You got to do it. We can't use our mouth and speak these words unto God and not keep what we say we're going to do with God. You know, many times we say, well, Lord, if you would just give me a house, if you would just give me a car, if you just give me a husband or a wife, I'll raise my family in the way of the Lord. If you just heal my body, Lord, I'll preach your word all the days of my life. I'll serve no other God. If you give me more money, Lord, I'll pay my tithes and I'll pay my offering. And then when God give you the money, you don't pay your tithes, you don't pay your offering, and you want to act funny. You know, when people get money, they act funny. And it don't be the money, it be the people. So it's something about that money in there, y'all. But we make promises, and we break them. We make them, and we break them every day. We have no intention to keeping the promise. We say, well, Lord, I promise, Lord, if you bring me through this trial, bring me through this tribulation, Lord, I'm going to live right. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to live a holy life. But we don't do that. We be holy on Sunday, but the rest of the week we doing our own thing, because we done made a promise to God, and then we turn around and we break the promise. And the Bible talks about how when we make a vow, we ought not to be slack to fulfill that promise, because God is not slack about doing what he said in the word. His word is his promise to every believer. And he's not slack at making that promise to none of us. So we got to be careful about that. And I just want to encourage you, because I know sometimes we can get in that place. We can get in that place and promise something to God, vow it to God. But if we do, we got to do it. We have got to do it. And we got to stop making excuses, because we're quickly to make an excuse and say, well, I can't do it today, Lord, I'm busy. Well, Lord, I got so many bills to pay. I got to work this second job. I got to work this third job, because I got to pay these bills, and I need more money, more money, more money, more money. And so God gives us more money to help us, and we still will not fulfill the promise. This is not the time, nor the seasons, to not keep a vow and promise made unto God. It's just not the time. Don't let words come out of your mouth that we are going to make promises and we don't make them. We make them, but we don't keep them. Because God will hold you accountable of what you have promised to do to him, for him, and to do what he asked you to do when you asked him to do it. You said yes. And God come to you, he said, are you going to do it? Do your heart still say yes? Do your heart still say yes to the promises that you made unto God? You say, well, Lord, I'm so tired. I'm just too tired. I'm just too tired. I can't go today. I can't do that today. But your heart and your soul said yes unto God, as Hannah did in the story. She said yes unto God, and she kept her yes. Will you keep your yes? Will you do what you promised you would do to God? Do for God? He waiting on you to do it. He done asked you several times about it. But you still got excuses why you can't do what you promised that you would do for God. You knew you weren't going to do it when you promised it. Why do we do that? We make promises not only to God but to other people, and we don't keep the promise. But the word tells us that we cannot make a promise, we cannot make a vow and break our words. It said we cannot. That's why it said we cannot break our words that came out of our mouth. Nobody made you make the promise. God did not make you make the promise. You made a choice to make the promise. Now it's time to pay up. Promises, promises, promises. We are making promises that we are not going to keep. I want to encourage you today to subscribe and like this channel, Love Today. And we want to encourage you to know that God loves you. And when we vow to God to do a thing or make a promise to Him, let's keep our promise. And not only to God, but keep our promise to others where we have made promises unto them. Start today. And let's keep the promises that we have made. Be blessed.